Well, you guys, I survived dry February, my first month without drinking in probably 10 years. So I wanted to talk about the benefits I felt, what was hard, what was easy, and I wanted to have my buddy Adam on here to chat about it with me. Adam Nairn is a good friend of mine. We met just last year, but have become quite close over that year. And the best way to describe Adam is he is a solid human being. He's solid mentally. He is solid physically. And we're on a similar wavelength, and that's what I appreciated, in that we're both just trying to be a little bit better each day for our families, for ourselves, and for our community. I thought at first that Adam was going to be my new beer drinking buddy, but it's turned into much more than that. And I want to thank him for being in my corner this month. It seemed like everywhere I looked, people were taking significant amounts of time off of drinking just to see what it was like, this sober curious movement that's going on. And I figured I should jump on board, give it a try. And once I made the decision, following through with it was not too difficult. I think this movement or this fad of people trying it out is not a bunch of alcoholics trying to get sober. I think it's a collective maturity and understanding of how bad alcohol actually is for you, and people realizing that and wanting to slow down a bit or cut it out completely. That's a choice only you can make, that you have to understand for yourself what is necessary. I'm not going to promote complete abstinence from alcohol, even though I know it's the most healthy option, because I would be a hypocrite. I'm not giving it up completely, and that's a choice I'm making after talking with my wife and my friends and really understanding what my relationship with alcohol is. It's as simple as this. If you're thinking that you should cut back on your drinking, then you probably should. Reach out to a friend you trust, talk to them about it, and have them hold you accountable while you take some time off. So I hope you enjoy these personal anecdotes and hearing about a few of my struggles and successes over the last month. And if something really speaks to you and you want to reach out and chat about it, I am always here for you.
It's the AC show with AC, your host. Check it out.
Well, Adam, welcome to the AC Show podcast. You are my first guest in almost 4 years. How does that make you feel?
Nervous.
Probably not as nervous as I am.
Okay.
It's been a while. I did a couple solo ones, and then we had talked about doing this for quite a while, and so I'm thankful that you're here. Adam, we met through, I hesitate to call it beer league hockey because they take it so seriously. We've both just kind of started playing last year, playing again, but how do you feel about the competition out there? Is it beer league?
Yeah, I mean, it's the best Division C I've ever seen. It's definitely beer league, though.
Yeah, it's definitely beer league. So we met through the hockey team last year and just started chatting and seemed to like a lot of the same things, music and hockey and beer. And we even had a mutual friend from Agassiz, where I grew up. His name was Arlen, a good guy.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up, Adam?
I'm from Oyama.
Oyama.
In the interior, yeah.
The interior, yeah. That's a fun word to say.
It is.
Kind of like Francisco.
Doesn't sound like it's in BC, yeah.
No, it definitely sounds like somewhere in the States, like some Midwest, Oyama.
Japan.
Or Japan, yeah, maybe even
I think
more.
it's named after a Japanese guy, actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, and do you know the story there? Why?
I don't. I've heard it a few times, but I can't recall. I wouldn't do it justice.
No, okay. Well, we'll leave that alone. And I've got to say, as we're going to be talking about going sober here, at least for certain parts of our life or certain stretches, I've almost completed dry February.
Congratulations.
And one more day to go. And then Saturday I might have a couple at my gig. We'll see. Or how much of a flex would that be if I didn't? Right, the first
you might
day
not.
of March. Yeah. Don't challenge me on that.
Depends how the gig goes.
You got me through a month here. You were one of the final straws for me deciding that I'm going to do this and take a month off, because it always came up a bunch, over the years. Everybody said, oh yeah, doing dry January or this and that. And it always kind of just passed me by. I was like, I could, but I really don't want to. And yeah, I wasn't feeling any pressure to do it really. But then, I started deciding to work on myself a bit more and understand who I am and why I do what I do. And that led me to looking at my drinking habits. And then it seemed like a bunch of my friends were taking time off here or there. And then you had brought it up to me saying, yeah, I'm taking a break. I need a break and see what it does for me, or just this and that going on. And so I thought, okay, obviously I'm running into all these people, and now my new friend Adam, I was like, what? Now he's going sober, and I really got to do this. So then I picked February, and got myself worked up for it. And we thought about doing this podcast before I started. I'm glad it worked out this way, doing it right towards the end.
I think it's better.
Yeah, we can get a feel for what I kind of went through as well, instead of just worrying about it. So I wanted to start a bit with my history with alcohol, and then, chime in if you got stories. I mean, I guess my start with alcohol, the first thing I remember was, I think I was 14 at a wedding in England, my cousin's wedding. And, my mom was there and my sisters, and my drink of choice was Malibu and lemonade.
Oh,
have you ever tried?
No, I haven't. It sounds delicious, but it sounds like a bad headache.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, I don't know what. I don't remember how tipsy I got. Oh, actually, I remember now. I slept in the hallway of the hotel we were in because I was locked out of the room. I had stayed up too late after 3 or 4 glasses of Malibu and lemonade, and and I found in the storage closet, it must have been the maid's closet, and there was like a new package of toilet paper, so like 12 toilet paper rolls. And that was the only door that was open. I was like, where can I sleep? I was looking for a couch or something, but I took that package of toilet paper and put it on the floor, and
could have been worse.
Slept out in the hall. So
could have been worse.
Ended up okay. I think even earlier than that, my mom's boss, when I was probably only about 10 years old, had me out to his beer league hockey game. And then in the dressing room after the game, they had a bottle of whiskey they were passing around.
The whiskey league hockey.
Yeah. And it got to me, and he said, go ahead. Took a swig of this stuff, thinking I'm all hot shit. And then I remember the next morning, I told my mom, I don't feel good. I think I have a hangover. And I stayed home from school. Anyway,
that beats the old spoonful of mustard trick.
What's the spoonful of mustard trick? It makes you sick?
The rumor had it would make you sick, and you could skip school that way.
Oh, okay. I'll have to.
I never tried it. I kind of like mustard, so
hopefully Haven doesn't hear this and try it. But, how about yourself? Any first memories of your relationship with alcohol? Funny ones, serious ones, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it was always around.
Like, were you pretty young too when you started?
No, not really.
I didn't drink a lot in high school. I'll say that now. Those were the 2 ones I remember.
Yeah, no, me either.
Yeah,
no, I didn't start till later.
Yeah.
Probably one of the later ones, the group of my friends. I don't know why. Old English, not good. Yeah.
Old English.
Yeah, it was a pretty quick night. The guys made me have a bottle of that, and they still bring it up. So it wasn't one of my finer moments for sure.
No, and yeah. So high school, towards the end of high school, there were a few parties I went to and got sick, drank too much and got sick. I do remember that. And then but I was all for it by the time I was 19. That's for sure. I got pretty good at partying, going out and keeping up with anybody I could.
Well, there's a big build up to it. Did you have a fake ID when you were growing up?
I did not, no.
No, neither did I.
I struggled. Yeah, I might have got in a place or two before I was 19, but I don't even think
I never did. I looked like I was 12 even when I turned 19, so it wasn't going to happen. I figured it wasn't even worth it. But I think it got built up because of a lot of your friends are going out to these places, and they're coming and telling you what a good time it is. And so when 19 happens, like you gotta try and get in those places.
Yeah. What I do remember actually was being at Boston Pizza with my older sister and her friends, and they would get jugs of beer, and they would sneak me a glass under the table, and then before I was 19.
Did you like it, or did you hate it?
I think I was 17 or 18 by the time, and I think I was starting to like beer by then. Like
I pretended to. I remember I was 18 and we went out to Calgary for the Stampede.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad was pretty excited. He said, I get to have your first legal beer with you, right? Because
Oh,
obviously
nice.
our drinking age is 19.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it at all. I hated it. I would chew a piece of gum with it to try and kill the flavor. And I just, you're having a beer with your dad though. So
My
I just
buddy
try and get
Taylor
it down.
used to chew gum with beer, and I was like, how could you? The minty taste and the bubbles? I don't know.
It had to be ice cold and it would just cut the flavor. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's funny. So yeah, normal 19-year-old college stuff. Oh, I guess normal, what I think is normal.
Sure. Our normal.
Yeah, I was getting after it pretty good, and back then it was like, yeah, big night, and then I need a couple days off. It was tough to rally for that second night or third night in a row of drinking or whatever. That didn't happen too much. And then I think probably mid-20s, I got a bit better at that, where I was like, oh, I can do this now. And I started thinking I was getting better at drinking, and I'm like, I'm good at drinking.
So when you were early 20s and stuff, were you still playing sports? Is that why maybe you were taking those time off or those gaps?
Yeah, actually probably. Like I was still, very big into the gym, like working on my fitness.
Getting those gains.
Getting the gains, and I did play a couple years still of somewhat serious sports, so that probably helped. And then that kind of went away, and it was more music stuff. And then somewhere along the line, I kind of stopped those big nights, and it turned into a bit more consistent drinking, and that's kind of where I was at these last few years, where it was like pretty consistently, having a few beers every night, maybe taking a day or two off a week, and then that was even getting skipped sometimes, and it was kind of going straight through.
But honestly, with the industry that you're in, that's almost impressive that you're able to maintain that level of temperance all the way through, just given what can happen to people. You're playing late, you're in places that are serving alcohol. So
yeah,
it sounds like you kind of recognized that early and you were able to curb it a bit.
I think I did. And because definitely the Jolly Miller, when I was doing that gig, I rarely ever had a drink on Wednesday nights, and because I was kind of seeing what I was surrounded by, I think. And Dylan, my drummer, really helped that, because he doesn't drink a lot anyways, but so when I was with him at that gig, it was a lot easier for me to just be like, yeah, no, I'm not going to drink tonight. I don't really want to drink here, and I'm working, and Dylan's here. We're cool.
I would imagine you see a different side of it on that side of the microphone too, where you're looking out and maybe.
Yeah, so there's that side of it that kind of, made me not want to participate. But then there was a side of it which made it seem very normal to participate in it, because I'm seeing these people 5 nights a week, or I'm out 5 nights a week, seeing people drinking, having a good time. And so to me, it looks like 5 nights a week, everybody's out having a good time drinking. And so to me, that looks kind of normal. And I agree with you that I was pretty good at shutting that down, after the first few years of having a lot of fun and drinking at all these private parties. Then I was like, okay, it's a job. I got to make sure, if I'm going to call this a career, I got to take it seriously. So yeah, most of the time, maybe 1 or 2 when I was out at a gig, and then that was it. But then it was just that consistency that was starting to ramp up, and like I mentioned, as I started a bit more personal growth, I started thinking, okay, well, let's really look at this drinking habit that I have. I've got a sister who's an addict. There's addiction that runs in my family. And so I thought, yeah, you better take a look at this and just make sure you actually do have it under control. When was the last time I took a month off drinking? And I couldn't even remember, like 10 years ago probably. But.
Yeah, so you brought that up. I think we had that conversation early September, and we were walking around the park, and Ledger was ripping with his bike, and you were talking about how you were thinking about taking a month off at some point this year. And I said, you should do February. It's the shortest month.
Call me out on that.
Yeah. And you did it.
Yeah.
You did it. But I could tell then that those were the thoughts that you had going through your mind. And I'd expressed similar ones. Addiction is something that has run through my family as well. It was something that I got told from a very early age that you need to be careful with it, because it's on both sides. And that always stuck with me. And you said habit, but it's certainly something that's in the back of your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I don't remember a lot of that messaging from when I was a kid. If there was that, hey, this side of our family has a few addicts, watch out, careful. And we completely lost my sister to it for a while. And she's now, I think, close to 10 years sober.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So that was a very close experience for me to have with it. And I've done a pretty good job at being honest with her and checking in with her, every 6 months or so, about my drinking habits and what I'm doing, what I'm not doing. And so I have an open conversation with her, and I feel like she's looking out for me, but I also feel like she might not overstep and be like, you should probably take a month off. I don't know if she would ever be that forward or aggressive about it, because there's also that whole mindset and that, people have to change for themselves, right? Like, you can't tell somebody to stop drinking and have them listen to you.
But if you're asking the question,
yeah,
and you get that feedback,
yes, yeah.
Does that change the way that you look at it?
Yeah, it probably would have, for sure. Yeah. But we always had that open conversation, and it seemed to go well. And I was always pretty comfortable with the amount I was drinking. But then also some of the new health guidelines coming out seemed to really make everybody think more seriously about it. How they're, I don't know, what are they saying? 2 drinks a week at the most now.
Yeah.
Or, and even that's bad for you.
Yeah, even 2 drinks a week can still substantially increase your risk of certain cancers and heart disease.
It's unreal, man.
It is.
And then factoring in the cost of it all, and that I've making this transition in my career, I was like, yeah, it's a good time for me to save a few $100 on booze this month. So that all played into it, and so that's what led to Dry February. And I had made a bunch of notes kind of leading up to it, and things that I wanted to talk about or was wondering about, and thinking how can I get through this or make this easier on myself, and kind of thinking of it as a game plan like that, and just getting myself amped up, telling a few buddies to hold me accountable just so that I couldn't back out. I don't think I was going to back out anyways. Like, I had a pretty strong idea in my mind. I was like, yeah, it's time. I want to see how this is going, what it feels like and what it might do for me. One of the worries I had was something you mentioned to me, that, the first week or two were actually kind of difficult mentally. And that's something I was worried about. Like, how tough can it be if you're taking this thing away that my body's so used to having, and then it's not there, and what that crash can kind of look like. And you had talked a little bit about a dopamine crash that happens in your body.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it was. I mean, I started a break late September, going through. My dad was sick, and I didn't feel like I was maybe coping with things the way that I wanted to, mm-hmm. and I couldn't really snap back mentally. I didn't feel like I was in a good place, so I felt like it was time for me to take a step away, really focus on whatever I could cognitively to get to a point that was better for me and those around me. And that first week, I felt like everything was testing me. I doing the right thing. Yeah. I'm driving my sister to a restaurant so she could have some drinks, and I'm planning to go pick her up. And as I'm leaving, I get backed into in her car, and just things that would typically lead you to say, like, I could use a beverage, kept happening. And I held through, and I stayed strong. But it was a battle in that sense. Yeah. It just felt like the world was trying to tell me, you should have a drink.
And so now that I've gotten through it, for me, it was more of like almost a depression, like a depressed feeling. That first week and a half, I was feeling just pretty blah, and it really made me think, wow, so how much was I depending on this as like a pick me up, in the late afternoon or early evening. That's when I was really feeling this fatigue setting in, and so it was definitely, what I was kind of worried about, it being tough the first week or two, it definitely came true. And it was like, it wasn't hard not to drink, but it was just a bit harder than I thought it would be. It was just a bit more mundane, and okay.
It just becomes a part of the day.
Yeah, yeah, and the feeling when I first took this break from drinking was, okay, let's just get through another day kind of thing. Like it was this. I told Jamie, like it felt like I'd gone on some antidepressants years back that kind of took away the highs, took away the lows, and it was just pretty, okay, just another day. Let's go through it right down the middle.
That's interesting that you say that because we didn't talk about that during the month at all, those first couple weeks, and I can relate. And I didn't know if what I was feeling was a result of coming down from dealing with my father who was sick at the time, or if it was a result of a dopamine crash, if that is a part of it. I've read that's something that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
But I certainly had similar feelings during that time. So
Yeah.
at what point did you start to feel like it was easy for you? Because you have made it the whole month, and
Yeah.
I knew you would as soon as you said that you're going to commit to it. I had no doubt that you would.
Yeah, and that was the same for me. Like I was at a good place in my life where I knew I could go a month without drinking, no problem. But still you have those negative feelings, throughout the process because it's, because of the consistency that I was drinking up to that point. And I felt it turn around right around the 2-week mark. It was like, and that's when I also noticed a craving. Like, and I didn't know I had a craving until the craving was gone after 2 weeks, I would say.
Yeah.
And then it was like, after 2 weeks, I don't feel like I want a beer, or I'm not thinking about, I really want to have a beer. But that was happening those first week and a half, is I had this craving to have a drink. And it's a weird, if you haven't felt that feeling, then you might not really know what it is like to realize that you had a craving, and then when it's gone. Because it's kind of counterintuitive that way. You would think that while you're having the craving, you would feel that. You would be like, oh, I'm craving this.
You just can't put a finger on it almost, but it's
that,
there.
Yeah, that wasn't it for me. It was that then the craving was gone, and I was like, oh, that's what a craving is.
So at that 2-week period then, what happened for you coming through that?
It was, I definitely started seeing like, feeling better in my body pretty immediately. Sleep was great. I was sleeping pretty good. I've always been decent at getting a good night's sleep. But after that 2 weeks, it was like, it was obvious to me what this was going to lead to afterwards. It was like, okay, this all makes sense. I'm starting to feel better. My body feels better. A bit of that mental clarity, and just really leading me to believe that, okay, now when March, April, May, June roll around, I'm just going to drink a bit less. It makes sense, then I can feel a bit better, because of realizing how much that probably was holding me back, the amount I was drinking. And so those were some of the things I was thinking about, also about, prepping myself for hanging out with people without drinking was a part of it. Because leading up to it, I was thinking, okay, well, every time I hang out with this person, and this person, I want to have a beer with them. Like,
They're bad influences, those guys.
Yeah. I know, and one or two of them are sitting in this room.
Yeah. Where?
But and that's just a mental thing too. And luckily, like I said, a couple of my really close friends were, trying out going sober for at least a certain length of time, or very happy to just come over and hang out without drinking anyways. But leading up to it, I set up just going for a couple walks with guys, or other exercise stuff where it's like, yeah, we're not going to drink, so let's do this with a buddy that you would normally always drink with, and then call it a day. Not go home and have a beer, but just send them on their way, to try and, again, pump myself up for this. And that kind of feeling of surrounding yourself with people that don't drink. Is this something you consciously thought about?
Yeah, as you were telling that story, I was kind of thinking of the first show that you put on here at Sparrow Road. And at that point, I wasn't drinking at all. And I was coming over, and all the people that were going to be around, or that I assumed would be around, were people that when I'd been around before, we'd had drinks with. And I brought over some near beers, or Corona Zeros or Heineken Zeros or something like that. And I was amazed just going into that group, and I was nervous. Yes, the answer is yes. I didn't know what it would be like.
Yeah.
But I've thought about it after, and I'll kind of circle back around. But I was amazed with those beers, even walking around, how many people had mentioned their curiosity into what it was, how they tasted, and had mentioned their desire at one point or another to maybe cut back. And that was an interesting unlock for me. Now, to go back to what I was leaning to, I think I knew that it would be okay. A big part of what I do with work is I'm walking into places and talking to people that I've never met, and you're acting like you're friends with them. So that social anxiety that comes along in your late teens, early 20s, when you're kind of figuring out who you are, and it's a little bit easier to take the edge off by having a drink, has dissipated as I get into my later 30s. Maybe I'm more comfortable in my own skin, and maybe that's allowed me to not really have that social anxiety anymore. But it was certainly there at the start, I think, thinking about it. But as I worked through that and got out there and talked to people while undertaking abstinence,
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's the right word, but sobriety,
Yeah.
I guess it is probably a better word.
Yeah. Well, are you having sex or not? Now, I definitely relate to that because, the social anxiety thing, and everybody always says, booze is this social lubricant, right? I think that's what a lot of people call it.
Loosen up, have a drink, right?
Yeah. And definitely, I think you're right on the money with this, as your early 20s, when everybody's usually drinking the most, that's when you're really trying to figure out who you are and how you fit in socially to what groups. Now that you're out of high school, you're not forced to be with these people. You're kind of trying to find your own groups.
Well, you and I are both from small towns where
Yeah.
the high school is really your social group. You'd have to go out of town to meet people. And I think that's a big part of it, where when you break out of that and you go into different places, and for me, I went into a bigger city. I went out to Victoria, and you're around people that you don't necessarily know. Well, what better way to get to know people than have a few drinks, take an edge off, and laugh at each other and learn a little bit. And
Yeah.
so I think that social anxiety that comes along that is what you're trying to break down at that point, because you're,
Yeah.
like you said, man, you're just trying to figure out who you are.
But then, you have a hard time figuring out who you are when you're clouded with a bunch of booze in your head, right?
You don't
Then-
think about that at the time.
No, and so this piece of figuring yourself out and being confident with who you are in situations where you're not drinking and you have your wits about you and you're talking about things you care about or giving your opinion that you really believe. Like, you have to be pretty confident in yourself, and it can be scary. And I think that's something I've just been figuring out the last few years too. It's like what I really value and what I really believe in. And when you have that booze kind of clouding your judgment and stuff, you can't always figure that stuff out properly. And so it's important to take that break so that you can, and do the work so that you can figure out, okay, who am I? Do I need this social lubricant? Do I need this booze to fit in or to be funny or to sound smart? I would definitely think the sounding smart
When
thing
in
is
reality,
not.
none of that stuff happens. There's nothing
Yeah.
worse than waking up the next day and knowing you had a deep conversation with somebody, but not really remembering the details of what you spoke about. And then there's
Yeah.
the shame and the guilt that comes along with that too.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's
Yeah.
going to help your confidence at all.
No, yeah, and the fact that you probably sounded more like an idiot than you think.
100%
I mean,
you
we've
did.
all had those conversations with guys when they're 6 beers deep, and you're like, okay, yeah, let's get to the end of this conversation and then pretend it never happened.
That makes me
You-
wonder, man, because I
But-
think, like when we started playing hockey together, we tended to sit at the same end of the room. And while there was beers there, like we would maybe have one after a game and sit there and just chat. And we got to know each other pretty good in a relatively short amount of time. And I wonder if we were able to, just because we were playing a sport with one another, like you do when you're a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bet that just the physical activity part of that almost acts as, easing that social anxiety, that tension, because you've just gone to battle with somebody.
It's a competition, right?
Yeah. So you at least have these endorphins in your body, I'm sure, right? That are,
I would think,
making you feel better about yourself and about the world around you. And so it's easier to connect, right? Where alcohol can do that in a false sense, right? But yeah, physical activity, another good way to do it. So the last thought I had before dry February is I was sitting there watching a Canucks game and crushing some beers. And I thought, I wonder if I'm going to do this in February, stay up late to watch a Canucks game. Or am I just doing it because I want to stay up late to drink a few extra beers?
I'm trying so hard not to chirp your Canucks right now.
Because
Because that's the month, if any month was going to make you do it with the way they played.
Yeah. No, so I survived, and I did stay up to watch some games. Had a couple near beers, and I think I do really love hockey, so that's not going anywhere. It was the hockey. It wasn't the beer that I was staying up for. So that was nice that I figured that out. But,
Yeah, they put you through it too.
Yeah.
You got to love hockey.
Yeah. Man, the Four Nations thing was off the hook. I loved it way more than I thought. Like, I wasn't into it until the puck dropped in the first game, and then I was like, whoa, I'm getting to watch all these players. Because I've been watching the NHL a bit more seriously over the past couple of years and really paying attention to the game itself and to the players. I would always say I was a diehard Canucks fan, and I was, but
Yeah,
now
no one's
I'm
questioning you on that.
Yeah, now I'm paying a bit closer attention. So then when the all-star teams went out, for Sweden, Finland, Canada, USA, and you're like, whoa, this is cool.
It was the fastest hockey I've ever seen.
Oh, it was unreal.
Yeah.
Who ended up winning that thing anyways?
Oh, yeah. Canada.
He had his Mick moment, right?
Oh, yeah. The torch is passed.
It was nice to have him on my side for once, that's for sure. Yeah. But so that was a bit that I had thought about, talking with you about before dry February even happened. Was kind of thinking, hey, so what's going to happen to me? What am I going to feel? And now I've been through it. I've felt most of it, all of it, I think. And I want to read this journal entry that I wrote. Let's see what the date is here, from February 9th. So a week and a half in. And then you can give me your thoughts on this.
Yeah, let's hear it.
If any. I said, not drinking is boring. I feel lame. Jamie says I'm lame. This is the dopamine crash. I can see my abs and shoulders and chest starting to pop out a bit more now that the beer bloat and retention and inflammation is gone. And I have not even started working out that hard yet.
Humble brag.
Yeah, this is so braggy. I've always been good about including exercise in my daily routine, so I have a high threshold or a high bar for what working out hard is. And I did crush that hill. Oh, I talk about that. Okay, stick to the journal. So I need to keep this fitness aspect at the forefront. Physical fitness for now seems like is helping more. So completely cutting out drinking will help me physically more than mentally. I think slowing down on the consistency of drinking will help me more mentally than physically. So this month I want to see how good a shape I can get in. Mentally, I was already feeling pretty great. The only thing that could improve is my quick anger reactions and patience. It has not helped much yet in that aspect, but I would expect to see this in the second or third week. So yeah, mostly in there, I kind of wanted to talk about this mental versus physical benefits thing that I think we did kind of talk a bit about, how at first, the mental benefits, I wasn't really seeing them. I could start seeing these physical benefits, which is great. And I think that's really what's going to keep me on the path of drinking less. I was feeling pretty good mentally already. And then when I stopped drinking, I think I felt a bit worse. and now it's kind of come back and feeling a bit better. But I just thought that was interesting because, the first week and a half, even Jamie said I was lame.
That is interesting. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
So you kind of went through in there and talked about some goals that you had. You got to let us know.
Oh,
Did you hit them all?
Okay, so thanks for, now I can brag some more.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of this month, February 1st or 2nd, I did the hill with the dogs and got 17 minutes and 30 seconds. And then today, February 27th, I did it just with Nancy, and I made it up in 14 minutes, 39 seconds. So almost 3 minutes difference.
That's a huge jump.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it felt good.
And it's a big hill too. Like
It's a good climb, yeah.
I went with you. It got me good.
I've been trying to tell my buddies, some guys, hey, come do this with me. Time yourself. Give me something to chase, or see what time you can get.
Should we have a hill race?
Let's do it. Yeah, exactly.
Let's big hill race. I'm in.
And then what's the one where you'd get the big wheel of cheese and you roll it back down and you all chase the
I'm out on that one.
Back down. Anyway, so that felt great. Tomorrow I'm going to do my fitness testing for chin-ups and push-ups and see how that's improved. But it's more so just my joints and my muscles feel better. I feel like I can trust my body when I'm exercising or stretching. Whereas before, when I was drinking, it was like I knew this was going to hurt a little bit because I have these aches and pains that just aren't healing. Now, after this month, I've seen some of those start to go away and start to kind of heal themselves. Like they finally have the, whatever it is, the nutrients or the hydration that is needed to kind of heal these little aches and pains that I've had in my wrist and my knee, specifically. And
I think last week you told me that the inflammation wasn't really there and you're feeling great.
Yeah. Well, and so then you can work harder and not have to worry about hurting yourself. When I'm really trucking it up that hill, I don't have to think my knee's going to give out or I'm starting to feel this pain in my knee. I didn't feel it once.
Well, today. You had that neck that you hurt for a little bit there.
Yeah.
And that was, 3 weeks ago at hockey?
Yeah,
something like
right.
that. Did that heal faster, do you think?
Pretty quick, yeah. Oh. That's a good point. That's another thing I barely had to think about. So I am, getting these knocks at hockey or whatever, and I think a couple months ago it would have put me out for 3 weeks or something, right? But now it's just, I don't know. I like to think of it that I'm just better lubricated. I'm not lubricated with booze everywhere, poisoning my muscles and my joints. And
there's got to be something to it.
Yeah. So it's definitely been nice that way, and I think that's going to be the driving factor for me. Just drinking less overall is this, I want my body to feel better.
So had you started that physical fitness and that push towards it before February 9th when you started writing that journal entry about how maybe mentally you weren't feeling so well, or did that start shortly after?
The physical push itself, I had started, I kind of tested myself in that first week to see where I was at and then so that I could do it at the end of the month too and see what improvements were made. And I was still exercising pretty regularly, in the months leading up to that. And I've always been pretty good at keeping it in my routine.
Yeah, you're in great shape.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But it had already started before that as well. But it's just been a lot easier and more enjoyable, especially the stretching and the recovery part of it. It's like, oh, this is actually nice. It's not.
So are you finding it's easier for you to get out and do it? To push yourself to do it and challenge yourself?
It's easier to push myself harder.
Okay.
Again, with the kind of trusting what I think my body can do now. Whereas, before I was like, I don't think I should do that. I'm going to hurt myself. I drank 6 beers last night. There's no way my body
can handle this. Try to do a backflip.
Yeah, exactly. That was only after 3 beers.
Yeah.
But, I was wondering, what do you think the reason is that it seems more and more people are curious about this and are slowing down, even the next generation? And let's start. Why do you think our generation drank so much? Why do you think the next generation isn't drinking so much? And, why is ours slowing down or starting to think, hey, let's cut this out? It seems like it's everywhere.
It is. And I thought about it a lot. And I don't really know what the answer is, but you can see with the marketing that's out there, you can drive by a liquor store and see on the side that they're advertising a non-alcoholic beer. Yeah. And 5 years ago, that's unheard of. And so that tells you that there definitely is a lot of people that are drinking a lot less. Mm-hmm. I think that there's definitely got to be a correlation with the health guide coming out and understanding that 2 drinks a week is still not beneficial. And there's a lot of people that are advocating that there's not a lot of benefit to drinking. So I think that's led people a long ways. There's a lot more information going around wellness. Yeah. I think there's a lot of focus on wellness, whether it's stretching, it's exercise. I do think that's conversations that are going on a lot more. We know a lot more about the diet now, and I think all of this stuff comes together to really just deter people from doing it. I also think that, this generation, this younger generation, I feel old saying that,
It's true, though,
they
man.
spend a lot more time online.
Yeah.
And maybe as a result of that, there's a lot less of that social anxiety because they're not in those groups. We're from small towns. We would go out and
Drink by the river.
river. For us, it was up in the bush, but same thing. And we spent a lot less time online. So I don't know if that factors into it a little bit, but I think with our group, we're getting older all of a sudden, and you see the generation ahead of you and some of the challenges that they're facing, and we do drink less than they do. But there's a lot more information that kind of tells us why maybe there's some struggles or other things that are going on there as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I see it also with, even some of my older neighbors here that just don't really drink much anymore. They drink a lot less. And it also seems like a bit of a natural maturity if you get there in understanding, again, health and your body and your mortality, or I think there is a maturity part to it where you're like, yeah, I should probably just slow down now, right? We're not in our 20s anymore. So I think there's that piece to it. But what was interesting, you said about how people are understanding that there are not benefits to drinking. Where, I guess, 10, 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, people actually probably believed, this is actually good for me. It's helping with X, Y, and Z. It's helping with my stress or, the antioxidants in wine, right? See, this is good for me. And
science has told us that you got to drink a lot to get that. And that, that lot that you're drinking, there's a lot more negatives to it than the antioxidants that you're getting out of that red wine.
There you go. Yeah. So, but it was like these little not lies, but these little things that came out that people misconceptions that people latched onto, and they were like, see, this is fine. I'm good. They say drinking's okay. But it seems like that's really shifted now where it's pretty clear, drinking's not good for you. It's not going to help anything. And but having said this, my plan going forward.
There's a big but there because I was going to say it too.
It's like I'm no doubt, I'm still going to have a couple big nights a year, when some of my buddies who aren't married yet or getting remarried get that, bachelor parties, let's do it. Like, I'm going to be there, and the Canucks win the Stanley Cup, I'll be there.
No, you won't.
So it's blowing off steam with buddies. I think you even mentioned this before we were talking, picking the right guys to do that with, in maybe a bit more of a controlled setting, or at least just, sure, go watch a hockey game, have a few beers, have a good time. And
I can't speak to what you're going to feel. I know for me, it's forced me to really pick my spot. Not forced. I think I've reevaluated my relationship with it. And as a result, you really want to pick your spots, and it's being around the right people in the right place. And it's why waste time if you're not going to have a good time and enjoy yourself with good people and bring yourself up. And you can do that without alcohol, but at the same time, it is nice to sit with your buddies in the right place and have a drink and have some good laughs and loosen up. And, I think just understanding when it's the right time is key there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can run a marathon without shoes, but with shoes, it helps.
It's a lot easier.
So what are some of the biggest benefits you've seen from your breaks when you do take these breaks? And what are some things it has not helped that you maybe wish it could or thought it might a bit more?
Yeah, I think the first one immediately is sleep. And I don't know all the ins and outs of the science with sleep and what it does, but I know for sure that my resting heart rate when I don't drink is a lot lower than it is on a night where I might. And that results in a much better sleep for me. I think sleep is kind of what fuels us for everything. So being able to have a good night's sleep is number one. I think with that sleep and probably, obviously not poisoning yourself, your mental clarity is a lot better too. That brain fog that you sort of mentioned, lifting is quite nice. I'd like to say I lost a lot of body fat, but that wasn't the case. It just kind of stayed the same. So just the consistency to be able to go more and bring myself to do it and have a positive attitude. I've been able to stay a lot more consistent. Exercising, that's a big part for me. I think it's something that I use to cope with the day-to-day. I try and go early in the morning, just make sure you're doing something difficult just to set the tone for the day. It's a lot easier to do without that. I don't know if I've had any the real physical unlocks that you had as far as like the inflammation goes and whatnot, or if I have, I don't notice them to the same level. But I think that's
Well, you're a
that's
pretty big
cool.
guy. I think you're carrying around a lot of force on your
My joints. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I can see, looking at you and how hard you work. And well, like you said, you're up, 5 a.m. getting to the gym or whatever, going to work and then working a full day. And you've got 3 kids,
Yeah.
correct? Yeah. 3
Yeah.
kids at home too. And so that's the stress. You're in the thick of it, right? Like that's where we're at in our lives with that work, family stuff and trying to hit the gym. And it's, I think 100%, like when you do cut that booze out, it's a lot easier to get through that stuff. Like you have this energy, right? And this clarity where you can make decisions, I think, a bit quicker and with a bit better preparation, or a bit more confidence in thinking, yeah, this is what I got to do right now. Prioritizing as well, right? Like,
Yeah,
you
100%.
pick your spots.
I don't know. I mean, you're in the thick of it as well, like with 3. Like it's just busy. And I think that there's going to be a certain amount of fatigue that comes around with that no matter what. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There's nothing better than waking up on a Saturday without a hangover and having a full day, and the days feel longer,
Oh
right?
man, yeah, and like hanging out. Yeah, exactly, right. With kids, waking up, being able to actually play with them, and not being like, just go, go watch your show. I'm gonna sit here for a while and recover. Yeah, man, it's been for me as well. Like I can feel that drive, and the amount of work that I've been getting done, I think is even more. Which is at a really pivotal time for me right now. So that's been great, and that's going to be another force that makes me think, yeah, okay, don't don't go back to at least as much as it was. If you want to pick your spots, like you were saying, that's a good way to think about it. But and so as exercise, that's kind of one of your big things for dealing with the stress of everyday life. Like, is that your main go-to?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Headphones on,
Yeah.
just kind of fade out and just be alone with my thoughts.
Yeah.
I'd like to get into a point where I'm looking at meditation, like I know you're really big on it.
Yeah.
And I'd love to know how your time away from it has impacted your meditations and whatnot.
Yeah, actually, that's a tricky one because right now, I'm still meditating. I'm very close to having it as a daily practice now. It's definitely 5-6 days a week, and it's been a bit harder for me lately because I'm doing a lot more work on social media and on my computer, and that's the stuff that really zaps your attention or energy as well, right? And I feel that anyways when I'm spending a lot of time doing that online marketing, and I just feel like my attention's everywhere. I've got so much things on my to-do list, whether it's music stuff or podcasts or writing, or just promoting shows, promoting myself, and then all the other day-to-day
You and
stuff.
I have talked about that a lot. Like you're not a huge social media guy on
Yeah.
your own outside of what you do to promote
Yeah.
yourself and put things out there. So I think naturally that's going to be a big energy zapper for you just
Yeah.
because it's not something that you
So that's
are a huge
been,
fan of.
That's been really fogging up my mind as the booze fog has left. This the social media fog I can feel it a lot. So my meditation practice has stayed, pretty similar to what it was last month or the month before, I would say. But it's maybe even more necessary now that I'm kind of busier than ever, I would say.
Yeah, you got a lot going on.
Yeah, it is, and it's a weird situation where busier than ever, but stepped back from so much, and but I think that's helped. Not drinking has helped me really focus and get a lot done in this month that I think is kind of setting me up for success. So it definitely came at the right time in that way.
Now, I know for myself, like the highs maybe like aren't quite as high at times, but the lows definitely aren't quite as low.
Yeah.
Do you think that's helped
My
for you as well?
my word of the year for 2024 was equanimity, and that's what it's about, right? Don't let it affect you too much, whether it's a really good thing or a really bad thing. And I know sometimes people get their backs up about that because they're thinking, oh, what? So you're never going to be happy again, when something good happens to you? And I'm saying, no, I'm not saying that. Yeah, obviously when a kid scores his first goal or something, I'm going to be ecstatic. But it's again picking your moments, and because as high as you get, you're gonna fall that far as well. So it's leveling that off a little bit in a healthy way and picking your moments. And hey, man, I love being sad sometimes. That's when I write my best songs, and that's when I really learn a lot about what affects me, right? So I am very comfortable getting down a bit low, and I'm very comfortable getting up a bit high, but I just don't let it affect me the same. And I bring it back to a baseline a lot quicker. That's what I've found. And I think that's mainly due to the meditation practice. That's one of the big benefits that I know meditation has for anybody who really gets into it and sits with it for a long period of time. It's, which brings me kind of the one thing that I wish this not drinking had helped a bit more with is that reactivity and my, reactions, which, towards the end of the month here, I've seen it start to come around a bit, but I can't attribute that to the drinking. I'm sure there is some studies that would show that it is correlated, but for me, it's like, I don't think that was the turning point. Cutting out the drinking, I don't think made me less angry. And that's the one thing I was like, maybe it'll make me less angry.
I think you have to give yourself a bit of a break, though. Like stress is stress, right? And it doesn't matter if it's a stress that you've put on yourself through overindulging, or it's a stress for things that are going on in life that are difficult.
Yeah.
Any type of stress that's there, it's going to cause those reactions. I understand 100%.
Yeah. It's that's I think one of the toughest things I think most men deal with in family situations. That is that dealing with the kids, the wife, and trying not to freak out, and it's really, again, taking that split second before you react to, okay, just take a breath, feel your body a bit. Whoa, I feel really hot in my head right now. That's weird. Okay, let's not let that explode out of me, right? And,
I think there's a lot of inherent pressure on young men our age too, to provide and everything else, and it's a challenge every day to just make sure you kind of keep her in check.
Yeah, and it's and I think that's why taking these breaks is good, to make sure you're really trying everything you can to hold up your end of the bargain in a family, right? In a house that you're kind of looked at to be the leader. It is a tough job, but we're lucky to get to do it, right?
Yeah, I think a big takeaway for me is I don't want to be having those drinks when my kids are awake. Like that's not who I want to be around them. And you mentioned leader there.
Yeah.
And I think that's a key point, because as parents, it's our job to be a role model for our children, good or bad. And so if we can set that example higher for them, your exercise, your meditating, all those things that are healthy, eating healthy, no chips, right?
Yeah.
But just kidding. But if you can set that standard for them, I think that's what our job is. And if that's something that's negative and you don't want to have it around, limit it.
I wanted to get back to the accountability piece that I think I mentioned, and saying I want, again, with your help, hold me accountable. Like I said, I was going to do February. I said, you said, yeah, got this. You got it. Go for it. And that's the easiest thing you can do, right? If you're thinking about taking a break from drinking, is just tell a friend. Be like, hey, I think I'm going to go this month without drinking. Because then you have that kind of commitment to somebody else that you've said, I think I should do this and I want to. And then they can hold you accountable for that. And it's not about beating you up if you fall short.
No.
But it's what is it? There's something there that it gives you a bit more drive.
It's drive.
Yeah.
100% is drive.
It's a challenge, or
I think when you are thinking about it yourself, it's really easy to be like, maybe next month, or I'll do that later. But
Yeah.
the second that you say that out loud to a friend, and a friend that you know is going to hold you accountable or could hold you accountable, maybe actually won't hold you accountable.
Yeah.
But even saying it out loud, now you're forcing yourself to hold yourself accountable. And I think you mentioned drive, like
Yeah.
by saying it, you're telling yourself you're going to do it, and you're a motivated guy, man. Like when you say you're going to do something, you do it, and you did it. I mean,
Yeah.
you didn't need me to hold you accountable. You held yourself accountable, but by saying it to me, you put that extra pressure on yourself, and you nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Well, fingers crossed for tomorrow.
Yeah,
Don't
see what
wake up
happens
and have
tonight,
a
eh?
Seizure.
Yeah.
Tonight after our second Corona zeros here. But
A lot of vitamin D.
a lot of vitamin D. But, and that would be probably my biggest piece of advice to anybody out there that is thinking about taking a break. Like, just tell somebody, send me a message if you want. Saying, hey, I was thinking about, taking a month off drinking or taking a week off drinking, and I'd say, great, let me know how it goes. And now I know, and I'll probably ask you next month or next week. It's bigger than you think. And I'm such an advocate of this in terms of writing as well. Like, It's different, man. Like, if you're thinking these shitty thoughts in your head about yourself or even about someone else, or write it down. And once you write it down and get it out of your head into the real world, you can start to process it and really understand what's going on as you write it. It's something about bringing it into the physical world. So yeah, saying to somebody, holding yourself accountable, that gets it out of your head. And yeah, it's just some kind of magic that happens. That
Do you
it
think
makes
that'll
it
make
more
me
real.
a better golfer?
Writing, yeah.
Yeah, you actually suck at putting.
Yeah, write it down. I suck at putting. Why do I suck at putting? Let's figure this out. Yeah, maybe it might make you practice more.
Yeah,
practice
there you go.
your putting more. Yeah.
But say it out loud, man. For sure.
Yeah, say it out loud. I wanted to talk a bit about this habit versus addiction. And this was just something that popped into my head, and I had a couple conversations with people about it, wondering what's the difference, how close are they related, thinking of it in terms of, well, was my drinking a bad habit that I had that I've now broken, or, was it an addiction that I'm trying to stop? And you said something great about how slippery of a slope that can be, just even that kind of thinking. Or
I think, and we just briefly spoke about it before, but like my gut reaction to it, or the way that I responded off the cuff here, is that a habit is something that you're willing to admit, whereas an addiction is probably something that you're not. But I'm not sure how different the two of them are.
Yeah, and I'm sure in
maybe a
different
habit's an
circles,
impulse, and an addiction is something deeper. I'm not sure.
different wiring of the brain, right? But because and you would probably be right to say, well, they're actually probably the same thing. If you've got a bad habit that you're not stopping, there's probably an addictive side to that.
Maybe an unchecked habit becomes an addiction. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about, and because I was chalking it up to, what the way I was drinking, it was a bad habit, but part of that probably is me not wanting to say, yeah, I was addicted to alcohol, or I am an alcoholic. This kind of thing. Like, those are such monumental things for someone to say, right? And also, you don't want to
I think
take
at the end of
that
the day,
lightly.
like a habit is something you can break,
Yeah.
whereas an addiction is something that's a part of you.
Yeah,
And maybe that's not entirely true, but I think that's how
Yeah.
they would be perceived.
yeah, and I do think that unchecked habit thing is a good way of looking at it too. Unchecked habit could become an addiction.
I could be way off.
Yeah, well, but
Probably am.
But again, this is just us kind of talking about what we think, and yeah, I would think the same thing, and because and then addiction, how wired is it, or how learned is it? I mean, you give anybody enough cocaine, they're going to become addicted to it. So everybody's got these addictive tendencies, or the ability to be addicted to something, but it's learning where to draw the line, I think, is the main thing, and then if you can't, then maybe look for some more help.
Yeah.
Start with a month. If you think you got a bad habit, well, try and break it for a month. And if you can't do that, maybe look at next step and talking to somebody about that. But
Yeah, maybe it's time to look in the mirror and Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of help that's out there for people that need it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of knowing where to go.
Yeah,
for sure.
And again, I think most importantly, just start with another guy in your life that you think is in a similar situation as you, a similar period of life, whether it's a family guy or someone just starting out their own business, or maybe you just graduated college or high school, and make sure you've got a peer that's, kind of going through what you're going through, and just talk with them about it.
I would say that it's important to have a mentor too.
Yeah.
Having somebody older that you could reach out to that's maybe lived through it and been there. I don't think there's enough people that are actively searching out mentors today.
Man, I love old people these days. Like, I love going and talking to older people, not even in a mentorship thing, but just picking their brain and be like, oh yeah. It's just, and it's something that's so lost, I think, in our cultures. Old people get brushed aside and almost seen as a nuisance, right? But you think about it for sure, man. Whereas in other cultures, they're revered as the wisest, and I think we got to look, for myself anyways, I need to keep looking at it that way. I've only recently started doing that in the last few years, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this guy's got something to say.
I 100% agree. And I think back to when our first daughter was born, and I was playing on a hockey team with a couple guys who were older on the team, and they would always sort of bring themselves over and take me aside and give me the rundown of how things were going to go and what I could expect and whatnot. And I appreciated that so much at the time. And, here we are close to 10 years later, and all those guys are getting up near their 50s, and, they're getting older, but now they've got new pieces of life that they can tell me about and work their way through. And, you go a little older even. Yeah, old people are great.
Yeah, old people
Not saying
great.
that those guys are old.
And what I was going to say is, on the mentorship side, something I've recently learned is more so that mentorship can still be between friends too, at the same age, or even someone younger than yourself. That mentorship piece, there's a lot behind that that is very important, like you said. But it doesn't have to be someone older who's been through more or better than you at something. There's different types of mentorship, and it can come from a lot of different places.
It's funny that you can pick up a book of somebody that you've never met and read it for personal development.
Yeah.
Whereas you might have someone in your life that's a little bit better at you than something, or someone that you aspire to, and you might be afraid to ask for
you shy
that
away
advice.
from it a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's kind of an ego thing that gets in the way sometimes, is you don't want to admit that this person might be doing better than you in certain ways. That, yeah, I don't know.
It could be a perceived ego thing on the other side too, where you feel like they don't have the time for you.
Yeah. The one last piece I wanted to bring up and admit is that I've been eating a ton of junk food since I stopped drinking, and not even junk, not McDonald's and stuff. I'm still not into that, but Jamie did bring home McDonald's the other night. Not for me though.
You didn't have any?
I saw the nuggets in the fridge and I left them there.
Attaboy.
Nothing worse than leftover McDonald's.
What's your go-to snack?
But I was just getting big into candy and chocolate.
Love candy.
I was really enjoying that. It was like I just needed something. So yeah, some Sour Patch Kids and just chocolate bars and cookies. And so like you said, yeah, that's probably better than drinking. But but I was like, I think I'll go back to just having a beer or two.
When we were talking before,
and try and get back on the diet.
When we were talking before, you mentioned that you felt that the candy was like a craving, or taking place of a craving for something else. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if it is, because it seems like a weird, how could you feel a craving for beer with candy? But I mean, that's a huge thing for people coming out of treatment. I know is, they'd find another addiction. My sister will tell you, actually, we did a podcast with her and she talks about it, one of the earlier days of the AC show. But she was drinking 6 or 7 energy drinks a day.
Holy moly.
After she got out of rehab. And obviously, I mean, that was not good for her, but she's recently kicked. That happened as well, so that's good. But it's you replace it with something else. And that's the thing, man. It's it seems like everybody needs something, but replacing those addictions with something else can I don't know, maybe you're taking a step forward, but you also got to keep that stuff in check. Like it's just a never-ending cycle. It seems like, right?
Yeah, it can be.
Until you reach that perfect, the optimal performance health thing, which is.
I don't know if there's such a thing though.
I know,
because like we were talking about like habits and addictions there, and I think the big part of what we missed is you can be addicted to good things too.
Yeah.
Like there's David Goggins. That guy's probably a little too addicted to running, right?
Yeah.
His knees are all buggered up, but he's still doing it. And, I don't think it just has to be the bad side of it too. Like you can take anything too far.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to try these things, taking breaks from this and that and picking up different good habits and see what really helps you. But all in all, as long as you can be happy with who you are and make sure you're not hurting anyone else, with the way you're kind of living your life, especially in a family situation. I would say that's the biggest test is this affecting my family in a negative way,
Yeah.
If it is, then you really got to look at it. If it's only hurting yourself a little bit, like what we were talking about, go out to a hockey game, have some beers, have a shitty next day. You punished yourself, right? If that starts affecting your family, your kids, then yeah, you really got to wrestle with that a bit more.
What I'm hearing you saying is balance, right? It's just a matter of finding it. And I think for me, taking the breaks, taking some time to reevaluate it, I think we're all better when we have that balance in our life.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here, man, and sitting and talking with me. It's felt really nice. I think I've missed this a lot about the podcast in general, just sitting down with somebody and talking for a long time. I think I used to say it a lot that's my favorite part about the podcast is it forces, somebody to sit down with me and talk for an hour and a bit more than a 5-minute phone call and something that I think is really important for us to start figuring out as humans is how to take care of each other and take care of ourselves a bit better.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. I think, I want to commend you because everything that you're doing, the way that you speak of men's mental health and you're truly a champion for it. And this has been fun, man, sitting down chatting with you for an hour.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I'll leave it there with that nice compliment. Take it easy, buddy.
Thank you, buddy.
Okay.